Welcome back, everyone. This is another week of Growing with My Fellow Growers, a special episode. Nothing really special planned. I know I mentioned potentially doing a Jeopardy-esque episode for the 100th show. This is the episode 100 of Growing with My Fellow Growers. I'm joined, as always, by an amazing panel. I'm going to kick it off first by passing it over to my buddy and Velvet Punch F2 tester, Spartan Grown. How you doing?
Doing good. Doing good. How you doing, Jack? I'm Spartan Rowan. You can find me on Instagram, all one word. And if you don't do the social media, you can get a hold of me on Gmail, Spartan Grown at Gmail. Other than that, I'm happy to be here.
We are happy to have you as always. I'm also doing well. Exciting day for me. I'll get into that in a little bit. But next, I want to pass it over to Dr. MJ.
Hey, grower love everyone. Dr. MJ Coco from cocoforcannabis.com. We publish articles, tutorials, and guides on the science and practice of growing cannabis, and I am excited as always to be here.
I'm going to go ahead and hit go in the chat because I realize that nobody's actually talking, and that usually means that they can't talk because I haven't sent a message. I don't know why that is the case now.
Yeah, it gave me an error. It gave me like a chat error thing.
I was getting that a few nights ago on Eagle's show as well, so I figured it out once he started doing that. Sometimes he has to do it, sometimes he doesn't, but I'll just make sure to hit that go or hey, whatever I have to say to start off the chat to allow all the chatters to jump in there and start interacting, because I think that is at least half of the show, if not more sometimes, as the communication and interactions going on in there. That community building is really awesome. Brandon Rust, how you doing over there? You are muted still, buddy.
There we go. Had my volume turned down because I was taking some bong hits. I'm doing great. If you guys aren't familiar with me, you can find me at Rust Brandon on IG, where you can find a link to my company, Bokashi Earthworks, and for the companies that I either consult with and partnered with or own or operate at. So yeah, it's always fun to be here. I like to come here on Sundays and smoke some weed, talk about weed with the panel members. Today is our 100th episode, which is crazy to think that we have done this for 100 weeks in a row.
It really is crazy. I believe 104 will be 2 years because there's 52 weeks in a year, and I'm no mathematician, but 50 plus 50 is 100, and then add an extra 2 plus 2
We
is
missed
4.
one. I was just thinking about that. Did we count the episode that we missed?
I don't think so. So
Then our 2-year anniversary is in only 2 more weeks.
That is true. Yeah, we had the one episode
Or 3
where
more
I
weeks.
couldn't get it to go live. We also had the episode where we went live a little bit late, but at least that one ended up being an episode. The lost episode that I realized I should have recorded, and then when we did the late episode, I only recorded that like first 20 or 30 minutes, and we were talking about a whole bunch of non-cannabis related stuff, so that will go on the unaired forever in the pile on my computer. But next up, we have Noah the Grower. How you doing?
How's it going, everybody? Yeah, I've been sitting out last couple of weeks. I'm a NFL geek as well as a growing geek, and the playoffs have been going on, but I'm going to be here full force. My ankle's starting to heal up, and yeah, I'm happy to be here with everybody talking shop, and happy to be here with all the viewers and listeners and all you guys. How's everybody doing?
I'm doing well. I hope everyone else is doing great also. I'm going to pass it over next to the American one.
Hey, Jack, panel, and everyone in chat. It's always good to be here. I'm the American one on YouTube and the American one _ Keens on the IG. And yeah, I'm glad to be here and chatting up with you guys, and hope everybody's happy and healthy.
Cheers to you, the American one. It is great to have you. I'm feeling happy and healthy, and always happy to be here with an amazing panel. Last and certainly not least is Matthew Gates.
Hey everyone, this is Matthew Gates, Integrated Pest Management Specialist. It is pretty cool, huh? The 100th episode, or maybe the 101st episode, 101st. Anyways, yeah, I'm excited to talk about your special news, Jack. And if you want to find more information about integrated pest management, if you have some pest problems and you'd like some help with them, you can find me in 3 places. My YouTube channel is Zenthanol, the same one that I'm commenting in the chat with, as well as Instagram at SyncAngel and on Twitter at SyncAngel.
Always a pleasure to have you, and I follow you in all those spots, and greatly appreciate the content that you put out there for the community, and just generally enjoy having you on every week on this show. So thank you again so much for coming back. Last, I thought you were last, but we had a late join. Not really late. He's here during the introduction, so he made it just in time. Kyle Breeder of Predicative Breeding. How you doing, Kyle?
Hey everybody, sorry I'm a little late. Glad to be here. Yeah, if anybody's looking for some good feminized seeds, that's kind of what I specialize in. I have a website that you can find at the letter P followed by breeding.com, pbreeding.com. And yeah, if you want to look at anything I'm kind of working on, you can check out, or that I have been working on, you can check out any social media platform at Predicated Breeding. And yeah, happy to hear. I'm glad everybody's here and doing well.
I am as well. It's always nice to see you.
We lost you.
Oh, looks like we lost Jack.
Everyone, Aaron the Grower won't be joining us this week. He had my connection was unstable. Hopefully you can hear me. I was just saying we lost Aaron the Grower this week. Can you guys hear me? Get a thumbs
Yeah,
up
we can
from-
hear you now.
Okay, cool. Yeah, sorry about that, everybody. My connection. I should probably figure out how to set this up in the other room. I'm on the opposite end of my house from the modem, so occasionally my connection cuts out there. But fuck you, AT&T, for having shitty routers. I guess my place is tiny, so it should be.
We
able to
just
cover.
lost him for the week, right? Just
Oh damn!
When
Yeah,
after that comment, probably,
just
yeah.
kidding. Thanks AT&T for giving me
You better be
internet and allowing me
careful,
to stream to the world over.
Big Brother's watching, Jack. Come on, man.
I'll say this: my cell phone internet is more reliable and fast than the internet that I pay for my home sometimes. So that's something.
I had to get a bridge to get into my office. I don't know if you guys remember, like back in the early shows, but I kept dropping off like that too. So I have the thing that just routes it through the power cords in the house.
I'll have to look into something like that, like a little Wi-Fi extender or something just to bring it into this room. But hopefully it won't be too much of an issue. I think it's good for at least once a show to get Jack Roboto fucking chopping in and out and coming.
Oh yeah, I
100
enjoy
miles
it.
an hour.
I like the accordion voice.
I got that Gigablast internet, so like, just the speeds are excellent for the most part.
Oh man,
Just
quit
get-
making
you
Oklahoma
just got-
sound like a utopia over there.
Hey, you know
It's
It's
what?
great until the
Oklahoma's-
tornadoes destroy it all, right?
You know what's fucked up is I'm in Tornado Alley too. I'm in Moore. If you just
Oh.
Google Moore, Oklahoma, you'll probably just see hurricane news. I have yet to see a tornado. I mean, not hurricane, tornado. But you know they're.
knock on wood.
I hear they're real. The real thing.
They do exist. That's true. More must stand for like more tornadoes.
You got to say
You're gonna
yet.
get more of them.
Yeah,
Here.
yeah.
I haven't seen a tornado
it does
yet.
get windy though. It does get windy here. That's what happens. We're in a plains state.
Oh, it's
Yeah,
not
it
if,
was-
it's when.
It was windy here in San Diego a week or so ago, at least in the Encinitas area. And you better believe the first thing on my mind was all those bugs flying around, getting everywhere on the winds.
First thing on my mind was those trees that were snapping off and falling over in the middle of the Coast Highway, blocking me from going to work and shit. So, fuck the wind. Even though it wasn't that crazy, it was like, what, 50 mile an hour? I've been in places where they have 100 mile an hour winds and stuff doesn't get as fucked up. But the rains followed by heavy wind, I think, is kind of softened up some of the roots and made some of that older wood more vulnerable. So when that wind came, it just yanked a bunch of stuff out of the ground. But
Definitely.
it is what it is. Unfortunate for the San Diegans, but we rarely ever get weather like that. I want to say cheers to Cheddar Bob. He said congratulations on the book. They are officially sold out. 50 Strains of Green, the paperback. All the copies that I got printed are officially sold. So thank you everybody for the support on that. I won't push it too much. The ebook will be coming soon as I ship those out. I'm doing the labels tonight and packing them, and I've started signing them already. So those should be shipped out tomorrow. And
About how
people
many
within a
books
week.
did you sell?
145.
Nice.
Yeah, so my initial plan was to I was between 50 and 100 because 50 is the minimum order at even like the smallest or any printer that I found. 50 was the smallest order you could do. So I was like, well, shit, hopefully I can sell at least 50. My goal was like 47. And in the pre-orders, I got more than that. And then once we hit the 100 mark, I was like, well, more people actually want them, and I haven't even finished the pre-sale yet, so I bumped it up to 140. They ended up having an issue where they brought me 135. There was an issue with 5 of them, so they said, we're going to give you a free 5 copies extra, And so I got 145 total, and they've all been sold. So cheers and thank you to everybody for all the support. And like I said, I just can't wait to pack them up and ship them out now that they're finally here. The pre-order ended on the 7th. I've been trying to pay the printer and put the order in, and it was really just on their end. Their color printing machine went down. Their perfect binding machine went down, which are like 2 things needed heavily for that book. And fortunately, they were able to get their shit together enough and finally get it to me. But that's what the delays are all about. I'm sure a lot of the listeners are wondering where their books are, and I feel bad because when you pay for something, you should get it in a timely manner. And I didn't want to have such a delay, but lo and behold, we finally got it, and they will be going out soon. So with that all aside, it is 4:11 here, and I want to give a big shout out to the Cheap Home Grow audience who comes every week. I've seen it getting up close to 200 viewers in our live at the high points of the show. And if I look at the little like thing, it shows, we started like, we're like 60 now, and it goes up and up and up. And a lot of those people stay, and they're just hanging out. I think the average view time is like at least a half an hour, but some people are staying for the full 2 hours of the show, which is really amazing. Thank you so much to the community, everybody who keeps coming back week to week. I love all the supportive messages, both right now in the YouTube chat, but also throughout the weeks. Like people say, man, I look forward to that. Like, when are you going to start uploading it? Like, that's one of my favorite podcasts. I love to listen to it during work. And this week I've been busy with the book and everything. And unfortunately, I said that I was going to be uploading and I haven't gotten to it just yet, but I do have the abilities, and that will be happening again soon. So big ups to everyone here. Smiley's Garden in the chat. I see Weedist207, Australian Grown, Grower Urban, Crispy Wannabe, and The Hook, Weed Culture Australia. It's really fucking cool to see that we're international, like literally sending some books to Australia and New Zealand and other places. It's just amazing to see how far and wide this community is spread, and that there are amazing people from all these different countries that are interested in the same things that all of us are. So thank you all for coming. And I just rambled on for several minutes, so I want to pass it over there to Spartan Grown and ask him what he's smoking on, because he's always got some dank over there in the bowl, and he always seems to put some smoke up in the air for the panel members who aren't, like myself this evening, until after the show, or maybe if I go off camera and run and grab myself a bowl. But Spartan, what you toking on?
I got another one loaded up too, but I got a bowl of Donnie Burger loaded up to smash again. Donnie Burger is a big favorite of mine right now. I mean, I wouldn't say favorite of mine, but I like it a lot. So
is that getting
genetics.
really popular? Would you say that's getting popular? Because I actually just acquired some Donnie Burger crossed with something that I forget the name of recently, and I just thought that was kind of serendipitous that you just mentioned it like that.
I'll say this.
I mentioned that lots and lots of times. I love that shit. But yeah, it's a less garlic terps GMO. So if you're familiar with GMO, think of GMO with way less garlic, and that's pretty much what Donnie Burger is.
With more gas and stuff like that from the OG. It's from Skunk House Genetics, Skunk Master Flex. He crossed the GMO, which he found from Mamiko Seeds garlic cookies, with a Larry OG, which he took to F8 to make a male. He wanted an OG male, and the initial cross was called Han Solo Burger, which was GMO crossed the Larry OG F8, and then he took GMO and then crossed it with that Han Solo Burger. So it basically became GMO crossed to GMO crossed to Larry OG F8. That gave you the Donnie Burger, which you might expect to be more garlicky than the Han Solo Burger because there's double the GMO in there. But in my experience and in a lot of others like Spartan Grown, it just, for whatever reason, the way that Larry OG F8 works, it passes different stuff at different generations of the crosses. But like that Donnie Burger is phenomenal. It's like a subtle garlic. Like you can tell that there's garlic there, but it's not like what's hitting you in the face. But there's just like funk, like earthy, gassy, like just amazing. It's in my top 5. And like, I know Spartan said it's not his favorite, but like I've been hyping it for a long time too. Cause it's like, not only does it smell good, but it knocks your dick in the dirt. Some super potent, and it's a beautiful flower.
The potency is up there for sure. I mean, I don't know. I haven't had it tested, but just for me feeling it, if I can feel it after a couple bowls, that to me, that's a potent strain.
Same why the name Donnie? So
Donnie Burger is from a
movie.
It's a movie. Yeah. Adam Sandler. It's like not I Love You Man. It's something. He's a good boy or something. I can't remember the name of the movie.
Oh yeah, that sounds familiar now that you say that.
It's from the movie with fucking the dude from Saturday Night Live. He was the writer, and then he started acting on it. And he's also in The Lonely Island. Adam Sandberg.
Oh yeah. Andy Samberg
Andy Samberg. Yeah.
Okay.
And it's like he's Adam Sandler is his dad. in the movie, right?
Yes, that's what it is. I haven't seen it. I've only seen the clip because Eagle Gardens actually told me when I was hyping up Donnie Burger. He's like, that's from that Adam Sandler movie, right? And I was like, what? I thought, like, because Han Solo is a Star Wars reference, I thought maybe there was some Donnie
Yeah, me
reference
too.
that it might
Me
be
too.
a Star Wars relation that I'm not familiar because I'm like a fan, but I'm not like a fucking super fan. I like the
Yeah.
fucking lightsabers and epic shit that goes on, but I can't tell you like what planet happened and what's movie and all that good shit. The one thing I wanted to say, Matthew, you were talking about it getting more popular. One of the guys I consider a mentor, he's nearing 70 years old. He's been growing for a long time here in San Diego. He's the one who got me into Donnie Burger. I had some of the cut that he ended up keeping, and it was phenomenal. The first time I smoked it, I was like, wow, this is one of my favorite things I've smoked. I loved it. And everybody I've smoked it from since then, it's been really good. And I'm seeing Spartan and I think Michigan Matt over there have got a good cut. And Pyramid Energy in San Diego. Matthew, I know that you're familiar with the San Diego Cannabis Farmers Market people. I think it was called Pyramid Energy 7 or something on Instagram. They won the highest cannabinoids, highest terpenes, and highest overall testing in one of the recent, I think it was called the Farmers Cup, when they gave out
Yeah,
those
the
little
most
wooden.
recent Farmers Cup. Yeah, and shout out to Joshua Caruso for that, for facilitating that in San Diego. He's a great guy.
So we have a question from the chat, not to change pace too quickly, but I love going back and forth with the chat. I think that drives a lot of the episodes and it keeps people interested if they want to come and ask a question or just tune in and listen to the other questions being answered. I think they keep it relevant and current, and whatever's on those people's mind, we want to get to them. So Sour Diesel Tangy, a longtime regular and one of our moderators in the chat, says, how would the panel approach a problem with timing? I have 4 mutants that I'm apprehensive to proceed with. So I popped 9 seedlings that are only 3 inches tall now. I need to up potted. So I got into that a little bit, and I don't know if he finished his thought there, but I think he's starting to talk about like timing the new seedlings with the older mutants. I really like Spartan Grown strategy where he's got the ability with a perpetual to, like, he has 2 of my Velvet Punches that he put into flower almost 9 weeks ago. And then he has a Velvet Punch that was really, really short that he waited and then put into for way later. So with a perpetual harvest, you can do that. I know that Sour Diesel Tangy is more like myself, who it looks like he does a monocrop kind of style where he has the bucket company set up. He's got like 8 or 10 plants or whatever all side by side. He veggies them up to a certain size and then he flowers them. So I guess my initial thoughts before I pass it to Brandon or Noah is that I would take cuts, I would grow stuff out, and then I'd try and use those cuts to populate. And then you don't have to worry as much about the individual size of that plant. So you can just take those cuts and then fill it up, and whatever gets big enough, a cut only needs to be so big, and you can get them all into veg at a relatively similar size and hope that genetically they grow at a similar enough rate that you can get a decent crop out. I just unplugged something, but there we go. I can hear myself again. All right, but yeah, I want to pass it over to Noah the Grower first, and then I'll get everybody else's opinion on that. So Noah, what do you think about his question there on timing?
It's kind of hard to understand the question, but yeah, timing is like a big part of perpetual. I like to do it in every 2 weeks, that way, because it takes, approximately, from when you start your clones, 2 weeks, some you can clone in root in 7 days, some, take longer, but 2 weeks is a pretty good medium for me. So I do 2 weeks. Plus, then, like I said before, I like to have a fresh pot. So every 2 weeks, I'm pulling some down. I'm going to be pulling one down today. And I like myself the 2 week, every 2 weeks, and then you have stages in your veg room, stages in your flower room, and even stages in your cloner. Like I have a 24 thing cloner, and I'll have some that I have dated, 2 weeks, and if they still haven't rooted yet, or if I'm just being lazy, then I'll put it in. And then you got to be careful when you do that when you have an arrow cloner, because the roots will get entangled. But yeah, 2 weeks is what I usually do.
That's a good idea for that individual to kind of give them an idea. I think it was Sour Diesel Tangy if they're interested in the perpetual. As far as going for the monocrop style, I think, like I was talking about, making mothers and then getting uniform clones as uniform as you can off of them would be one way to go about it. Doc, I'm curious if you have any thoughts on kind of how you would go about the shuffle. It seems to me like you're more on my style of we just do like not a monocrop, but a full crop, take down that harvest, and then you have the next crop basically ready to replace that one, as opposed to having like 3 plants in flower and all of them, like one's at week 2, one's at week 4, one's at week 6 type thing.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, and I sort of understand that. It depends on the space you're working with, but yeah, I think in a single tent, like I just run straight grows. There's oftentimes a little bit of overlap just between the New Year's Grow Challenge and the Spring Autoflower Challenge, or sometimes like on top of each other. But not really. So, I mean, I have the challenge schedule, which maps out sort of when I grow. I started grow on January 1st and on April 20th, and then on middle of August, and do those 3 grows a year. So they're all sort of spaced out with a tiny bit of space in between them. You know, I think it introduces a challenge. And if I was going to set up a perpetual, I think I would do it in several tents. And keep each sort of tent together in its same cycle. It introduces some interesting training challenges if you have freshly flipped plants that are stretching, sharing space with the sort of large, mature, ripening plants, at least in the sort of scale that I'm working in.
I think that's a great point. I'm curious what the American One's thoughts are on this. Tal, you're on mute. I don't know if you're still with us.
Yeah, sorry, I was over on the YouTube. I would say, first off, like I always make more or plant more seeds than I'm going to end up putting into a room or a space. This way, if there's weaklings or mutants or just failures, you're not left with 0 spots. So that would be the first thing I would try and attempt to start doing. And yeah, depending on the size of them, I'm going to do the same thing pretty much that you explained that Spartan did. You know, I have one, I start a set of seeds. If one is like half the size of all the rest, I'll just wait and put it in later or the next run or in a different spot. But I understand some people don't have that option. So yeah, that's a tough call. I guess you could leave them for the next run, you know?
Well, I also want to just say that, you know, you can flip plants together that aren't the same size. There's a lot of wiggle room during the stretch, in particular, to sort of let plants catch up vertically. And the larger plants may end up sort of taking up more horizontal space, because the smaller plants need to sort of work more on their vertical growth. But you can certainly get away with a lot in terms of different plants flipping. I'm actually doing that now. I have 2 plants that are a month old. I'm about to drop a seed for the one cola. It's going to be 2 weeks old at the flip, but that one cola plant, just because it's going to be trained to be only one cola, is still going to be the tallest plant in the grow. And I'm sort of still thinking about how I'm going to train that. So I think that gives you a window into sort of how you can use training to focus growth vertically on the shorter plants and sort of force the larger plants out horizontally to let them end up with an even canopy by the end of the stretch.
That's a great point. I wonder if you're going to end up with like kind of a tall spear, or if it's going to be like a giant hook that gets like, just elbowed the shit out of my mic. Sorry, everybody wearing headphones and myself included. But yeah, like Kyle Breeder ran that Corolla a while ago that he had to like turn on its side. And I just saw Mendo Dope. They had harvested the Corolla plant that they planted last January. There's like snow on the ground.
That was crazy.
Mendo.
I saw that.
Check out, if you haven't already, Mendo Dope on YouTube. They have a video of them. Even I think it's on their Instagram as well. But you can see them going through. They're trying to grow the tallest plant in the world with a Corolla clone that they started in January. And Corolla is like a area in India where it just grows insanely tall. I think Kyle, and I'll pass it to you after in just a second, grew one that was like several, like maybe over 10 feet tall after it was all said and done, indoor in a pot. And the Mendo Dope one ended up getting to like 15 or 16 feet before the fires came and basically blocked out the sun for a full month and severely stunted the growth. And then when it ended up like flowering and stretching, it ended up yanking the rebar out of the ground and like cracked a cage in half. So it's funny, like the plant literally went straight up and then it like bent completely over almost all the way to the ground, but it's still like kind of encased in cage, and it's really larfy and airy and like real sativa bud. But they're like, hell yeah, we're gonna harvest this shit and smoke it. It's like, it's pretty cool to see. But Kyle, I'm curious what your thoughts are on the individuals. I think it was Howard Diesel-Tangi talking about timing his plants, and then just generally, what are your thoughts on like growing a plant like Corolla?
Yeah, so I'm kind of, I mean, typically I try and keep, I always try and have two tents, one for seedlings, clones, and basically like mother plants. And then I typically take clones and throw them all into a flower tent. But there are times where I'm in a scenario where I have, and specifically right now, where I have, um, basically I took clones, put the mothers in the flower tent, but I also have clones that I have taken from other phenos in the same tent. And the mothers are obviously 2 or 3 times the size. And what I'm going to end up doing, and I'm not saying this is something that people should purposely practice, but what I have done in the past is actually chop the mother plants in half. And the lower section of that plant actually turns into main colas again. And that kind of evens them. It allows the lower ones to catch back up, or you can also do that plus, super crop or top to try and let the others try and catch up. So those are some things that I try and utilize, as a grower to try and catch up the canopy with the other side, because I'm literally going through that same thing right now.
I like what you're talking about with like the hard. I've heard it called like hard topping, where you basically like chop the plant in half.
Completely in half. Yeah, and it's fine, man. It comes back fine.
The
Those
root ball,
lowers come back healthy. Yeah.
The root ball is the same size that it was when the plant was double that size. So I've always thought and realized, I think, because there's so much like strength in that roots and built up, if it's established in a healthy plant, when you do that hard top, that one, the light is more uniform. Usually once you chopped it in half, it's no longer like that Christmas tree structure. It's got a lot of like the lower side branches that are now getting uniform light and everything. But on top of that, that root ball is pumping out for basically half the amount of upper volume. And it just seems to like perk up, pray, and just grow really vigorously after that. But at the same time, it's probably a waste of time in the veg space if you're paying for those lights at 18 hours or 17 hours or even 16 hours of veg light. It might be better to just veg for a shorter time and get it into flower if you have the space. But lots of different things going on there. Matthew, I had a question for you about the Corolla and just taller plants in general. When you're getting into the 15, 16 foot high range, is there issues with like birds wanting to attack the cannabis, like eating the cannabis if it's not seeded? And or is there other pests that might be more likely, like as you mentioned at the beginning, when the wind was blowing really hard in San Diego, there's probably bugs flying all around. Is being a 15-foot tall plant making it more of a target, or is like a shorter, wider, bushier plant more of a target for when the wind-borne pests come blowing through?
This is speculation, but I think, yes, I think that there are probably cases, and maybe depending on where you are, this is maybe more of a problem or less of a problem. But definitely like taller, and you think like in the general like landscape of the air, right? Like the atmosphere, you know. Um Maybe the difference of a few feet, even like 5 feet, might not be considered like a big difference when you think of how many hundreds of feet or how many hundreds of meters the atmosphere entails and organisms that live in it. But I do think that like something as egregious as like 10 feet or like 15 feet um, would not necessarily just for like birds, but like even like insects that are wafting on the air currents and that kind of a thing. Definitely a more visible plant is going to be more likely to be detected. It might give off, it might be more easily because like insects, for example, in specific, they see the world very differently than we do. So do birds for that matter. So I could totally see how that might be the case. Although I don't think that birds would be.
Birds don't. Yeah, I don't think birds eat pot. They only would eat the seeds.
They would eat the seeds. That's what I'm thinking.
They do eat seeded.
Maybe the
seeded
leaves
buds.
sometimes. Maybe, but like
hemp fields that grow for seed have a lot of issues with birds. And like my buddies who breed outdoor in greenhouses, my buddy Vegan Doja up in Del Norte area, I always wondered if he used the purple punch so often in his breeding because maybe he got more seeds off those plants, because I found out later when I was studying the methylanthranilate, which is that artificial grape ester that is produced naturally by cannabis and Concord grapes. But that smell has been extracted to pure methylanthranilate. You can buy it by like a 1 gallon jug as bird repellent. So they like put it on lines and stuff, and they use it as a way to turn the birds away. So I'm wondering if cannabis maybe naturally, at least for the seeded crops, produced this chemical as a defense mechanism to repel birds and help as many of their seeds survive as possible. And again, that's just totally speculation, but it is coming off of some foundational grounds of like, I found that chemistry that's known science and it's used in certain fields. They sell it as a product, and that doesn't mean that it's perfect, but it is used. So I know at least that much. But I haven't seen too many birds. Like on people's, I follow probably 7,500 plus growers. I have a backup account now that I just keep on following new grower pages, and very rarely am I like seeing people like, God damn, the birds came and ate all my weed. It's more like, cannabis aphid, hemp russet mites, like so many other things. Even buffalo.
I've literally never heard the birds ate all my weed one.
Right, exactly. Yeah, that
I've
makes
seen-
sense to me.
I'd like to
goats
jump in
and
and
stuff.
answer that question real quick if I can, though, before I
Yeah.
forget. But on top of all of the things I've already discussed, and my way of doing things, if that's not, as far as how I do it, and Jack described it all. But there's two things you can really do. I mean, you can top the shit out of your plant. If you're selling veg, you can cut that plant almost in half if you want to. Or even better, in my opinion, is you can low stress train that plant, pull it down, and you can even remove leaves. You can do leaf strips. Take all the big fans off. All those things will slow it down and let the others catch up to it. There's different techniques you can do like that. You know how to slow your plant down, and you know how to speed it. I mean, to speed them up, you just do what you do anyway. You're trying to grow them as best as you can. So let the one grow faster than the other. They're going to catch up eventually. If it gets drastic, that's when I go to cutting them. But before cutting them, I like to just bend them over and maybe remove some fan leaves. But if they continue to grow fast and vigorous, you might have to just cut them off. Maybe you can make some clones and or you can just compost them. But yeah, cut them.
Yeah, definitely. I believe that you can do at least half the height in chopping it back to slow your situation down and make the plant more reasonable for your space. But I do also prefer the LST. I'll take a branch all the way from the top and bend it basically all the way down to the soil, and let all the other ones come up. And even within that, the ones that are like second, third, and fourth, I'll start bending those down as well. And it's amazing how the auxins, I think, or cytokinins, respond to that type of adjustment in the plant and just change, like even without topping, even without removing a single leaf. I do believe that removing some of the larger leaves will affect how that individual branch grows and how the whole plant grows in general. But even without removing any, if you just completely bend it over, you can see the plant react in such a dramatic way and how it dedicates its growth. The male that I have right now in like week 2 of flower, going into week 3 actually, my wife was mentioning it didn't really look as much like Miss Nudie Grows, who had a male that was just like one big cola. It almost looked like a female plant because like the pollen sacs were so tightly nugged up, like it looked like just like a baseball. Where mine is like a plant that is basically an S curve. It's like bent over, and there's like a bunch of tiny little colas shooting out each side. And I never even topped it once, but every single one is like a perfectly flat canopy all the way across the top. And so there's a whole bunch of different ways to go about doing it. That's for sure.
Just one little quick.
Yeah, that Nudie Grows man looks good. Just saying.
A quick pro tip to do exactly what Jack was talking about. This is what I fucking love for low stress training. They sell them for supporting your plant, but I just use them. They're like on a tension, so you can hook one side to the corner of your pot or the edge of your pot, and then hook the other. I usually hook this side to the pot, and then this side goes to the branch that I'm trying to pull down. Then I pull the branch down to where I want it, and then I push the button on the back to hold the tension where it's at. And I fucking love it. It's so easy. There's no tying or twisting or anything. It's just boom, you're done. I love it.
That velvet punch.
Love that. Yeah, that is a better
4.
use for those things than using them to do the mannequin set in your tent, I think. But I like it. Good tip, Spartan.
He
Yeah,
definitely demonstrated it well with that real short velvet punch pheno that he's got. He's got like 3 or 4 of them on the lower carcass, and it's like you can see it. It's such a tight internodes plant that if he didn't do that, it would have like just all the nodes basically below the top one would get no light at all because they're so tightly stacked together. You have to sort of pull it apart. And one thing I want to say on the opposite end of those tight node plants, like going back a little bit to the Corolla, tall plants are risky for other than IPM purposes. I don't even know if this is considered IPM or just general management, but like
If those branches break, that's definitely a wound that could be infected. If that's where you're
that,
going with it.
and on top of that, I was going to say for human risk is working on that kind of a plant. One, like Mendo Dope, we just saw rebar got yanked out of the ground. If somebody was there, they could have gotten fucking stabbed or hit by a falling
Absolutely.
cage. Also, like Brandon's Black Label Organics, you don't see these plants that are 20 feet tall. They're all like an indoor plant that's flipped relatively soon in a light depth setting. They might be 6 to 8, maybe 9. I don't know how tall they are. I'm guessing under 8 feet, between 5 and 8 feet for most of those plants, which is something that you can go in there and reach your arm up and pluck leaves off of. You're not going to have to get on a ladder and start plucking leaves. When you start getting people on ladders, you have people falling off of ladders, and then you have ADA and other compliance issues where if somebody gets hurt on the job, that's a big fuck up. I hate to say it, but like that'll really set back a company, whether it's cannabis or otherwise. So the amount of things that we could reduce risk for the workers and make it a safer workspace, and also like have a productive greenhouse or outdoor setting. I just am a big believer that as much as it's really fucking cool to grow giant ass plants that are 15, 20 feet tall, it is definitely a little bit riskier from
Plus,
the
you get
it's
the
not
human
commercially
pest
viable.
risk. The human pest risk. Mendo got visited by the cops because their plants were so big, the cops could see them over the fences and everything. And then the other risk of getting yourself robbed is also a potential problem. So yeah.
Yeah, theirs could be
You
seen
know,
from
a
satellite.
large part of the history of the late 20th century agriculture was making dwarf varieties of the major agricultural crops. That was what the whole Green Revolution was really all about. It's more efficient to grow smaller plants that put a larger percentage of their energy into the harvested product as opposed to sort of the structural growth.
Like a compact, super dense fruit maker.
Yes,
like an
but
autoflower.
you know what?
Yeah.
With cannabis, that was my motto. I was like, why do these people want 20-foot, like 10, 20-foot plants? I'd rather have 20, 6 or 10-foot plants. But there's a fine line, especially with yield in cannabis. If you push your, especially indoors, if you push them into flower too soon, the yield could be significantly less than if you waited probably 2 weeks on certain strains. It makes a world of difference. On certain ones, maybe not so much, but that could be
you run into when I like the littler ones myself too, but then you have people running into plant counts. So there's an argument on both sides of that. I myself have found like, you got to find that happy medium for your environment. But yeah, I mean, if you could grow, 1,000, 3-foot plants that, are 3 foot all the way at the end, you put them in when they're 18, they stretch or whatever. But yeah, I think that you got to find the happy medium, and it is there, and every strain is different, and your environment plays a part of it too.
I totally agree with the plant count thing. One thing I wanted to say is like I have mixed feelings about the plant count thing because I agree with you. Like if you're lucky enough to be in a place that legally allows you to have a plant count that's like respectable, like unlike Canada, like 4, fuck you Canada, get your ACMPR if you live in Canada. Don't just grow 4 plants. Or like the outlaw past side of me says like fuck the government, it's a plant, it shouldn't be regulated, grow as many as you fucking want and keep it secret and safe. But I don't want to advocate that because I don't want to get people in red states or even legal states in trouble. But yeah, like if in those legal states, I'm in a legal state, and there are supervisions that you can do to get more plant count legally, and like not like the old 99 215. Like there's a limits exemption for people with medical issues that need a higher plant count to grow a garden to the size of their needs in California. That's just one example. I know every single state's a little bit different, so we won't get into the nitty gritty of all that necessarily. But definitely like Mendo Dope, as we mentioned earlier, the reason they were growing those plants so big was because plant count. They wanted to stay under 99. Back in 215, you could stack medical caregiver licenses and grow up to 99 plants. And if grow 99 plants,
they were
grow
doing
99 giants.
Well, either they was doing something wrong or those police are really corrupt, because they ended up, what they did? They handcuffed them to their tractor or whatever and made them watch as they put all the plants through a wood chipper. So
definitely.
And they didn't get charges, I don't think, on that particular.
Most of the time they don't, unfortunately.
Yeah, exactly.
but the
You know,
damage
it's
is done.
interesting. Just to step back for a second, there's different reasons why you would sort of approach a problem as a farmer, as an agricultural consultant, or any of these other sort of things. There's agricultural reasons or sort of botanical reasons in terms of how you would want to manage your farm based on how plants grow best. There's also economic reasons, and you often need to sort of balance what's economically most viable with sort of the best practices from a botanical perspective. And I'm sure Sink Angel could tell us all about that, Matt.
Yeah, I do get in the weeds about that kind of a thing.
Exactly. But now we're talking about legal reasons, which are sort of a totally different dimension that
a little more
doesn't come up
arbitrary
at all.
A little more
Plant
arbitrary,
count
I'd
isn't
say.
an economic thing, and it isn't an agricultural thing. It's a weird, bizarre thing about sort of cannabis legal regime.
The other thing
That
is
makes me
weird
think
is,
of like beer, for example, or like wine, and like how like, at least in America, and I think in a lot of other places, like various countries in Europe, like what is considered a mead or a wine or a beer or various subdivisions and permutations of this is regulated for tax reasons, for example, for classification reasons, for example, simply to be like, so that you can say that this is whiskey and this is not, and this is whatever, right?
it's interesting because, like, what is a plant?
Yeah, no,
And
exactly.
In Michigan, it's different than in California, and it's different than in other places. Like, if it doesn't have roots in Michigan, from my understanding, it's not even considered a plant. Until it grows roots, you could have millions and millions of cuts, clones, ready in your cloner, and until they pop roots, it's not part of your plant count in Michigan, is my understanding. And then
there's a famous Supreme Court example of like classifying tomatoes as fruits or vegetables.
Is it vegetables? Yeah, exactly.
Or vegetables,
I was going to bring that up. That's another interesting example of the legal area sort of infringing on this. That's mainly due to sort of marketing issues, though.
True. Very true. Very true. I was just having a conversation with this individual. I'm working on some like speculative fiction world building, which I'm excited about. But like, we just had a huge conversation about classification. Well, how are we going to classify all these different creatures? We're not going to reinvent the taxonomy list for like real life. So we had to like figure out, well, what is a plant and what is this kind of thing? And what inherent traits are we going to make for this classification? If it has fur and it walks on two legs, is it a man kind of a thing? That's a reference. I don't. Yeah. Anyways, if you get that reference, tell me in the comments.
I don't get the reference. It's a man and has to.
I might have said it wrong.
You know what I think comes closest to what we deal with in cannabis with the plant count is probably like the organic regulations that people that are trying to get certified organic have to deal with. And you have a whole bunch of sort of legal issues that affect the way you can manage your farm that are sort of not agricultural issues. They're not botanical issues. They're not economic issues. They're purely sort of because of the legal regime that's operating on you.
I like that. I like that that reference. I think there's a lot of truth to that. Yeah, there's a lot of analogy there.
And they have to balance that. It has to be sort of one of the things that you take into consideration. You know, I used to consult with a bunch of farmers in Central California that were sort of on the fence about whether they wanted to get that certification or not, and running the numbers and sort of how they can market their stuff if they're not certified or is an organic, and a bunch of different things that then have to enter into their whole farm management practices, their marketing strategy, their like crop management strategy and everything else that are really essentially arbitrarily legal in nature.
It always does seem to be is like, why is it the people that are making these rules, regulations are always the people that have no fucking idea how to grow anything? And they don't want to list, they get one buddy who comes from some sort of a horticultural background, and they will tailor every regulation to that buddy's plan, and then everybody else has to suffer.
Well, that's just in cannabis. But
that's true in cannabis in particular, but it's also something we said of like, specialization in labor. Bureaucrats are kind of a byproduct of that, I think, fundamentally.
And if you look at a lot of the real sort of agricultural, the farm bills and all that legislation, they're absolutely influenced by farmers and farm lobbyists and industry lobbyists on that side. So,
They know how to grow, sort of.
well,
Sort of.
yeah, I mean, it's an area of expertise, maybe not exactly the one that we're thinking about.
Yeah, they're more, that's another thing though, and that's the thing that I'm sure cannabis is going to get to too, is once these big corporate, once it's going to have to be federal legalization, but when that happens and these big corporations want to get involved, they're going to have lobby groups behind them and the rules will change to benefit them. It's going to be really
exactly.
Really
we had this conversation a long time ago. So I remember we were talking about legalization and whether or not we should support legalization that didn't include home grow. And that was my argument. I mean, if it doesn't include home grow at the beginning, it's never going to, because you're going to create a powerful corporate interest in that state that is going to lobby against it.
I've always been a proponent for home grow is the very last thing. I mean, if you give that up, it's prohibition again, basically.
If it doesn't include home grow, it's not a legalization bill as far as I would be
already in the ears of the politicians, like Philip Morris and all them are probably already got them already.
So I've had a few people reach out to me, someone from Oklahoma and from Hawaii, another place I do consulting, because I work with one of the largest patient license holders, because in Hawaii it's just medical, and it's you can have X amount of plants for every patient license you hold, and they hold the highest number of patient licenses. And so for them, the lawmakers are usually go to the people who are, producing well, and they're usually coming at them and saying, what's going on? So, they came to me and I told them, like, you can't be exclusive. You can't just go with corporate money and with wealth, because what happens is these people come in and they're not from cannabis. They don't understand how to grow cannabis. And what ends up happening is they spend all this money. Meanwhile, the black market gets stronger and stronger because they've been excluding everybody. The real value in cannabis when it comes to legalization is inclusivity. And that is because when people have the ability to operate, they were like, well, what about overflooding the market? That was a question, Well, those things will even out, because in all new markets, there's going to be market saturation, right? But the people who are able to distinguish themselves, have good product, get good feedback from their consumers, and follow the market analytics to see, what is selling. That's what we should be producing more of. What's, all of the different aspects that go along with it. A lot of these that people don't consider, the things like the HVAC people that get work, those companies, the electrician companies, the construction that goes along with it, the increase in property tax. There's all of these different aspects when it is inclusive that happen simultaneously to the whole economy. So the whole economy profits when there's less regulations and less taxes on new emerging markets that have, high potential for value. And the thing is, these regulators are really trying to figure out, well, how can we capitalize off of something that they, were probably against or are not involved in, and they want to see how they can get their piece too, right? Without actually putting in the work of like growing and distributing. They want to be able to do the legislation. And in my opinion, the people who are writing good laws, I think the growers, the distributors, the dispensary owners need to back those types of people and give those people power, because it's really in numbers that we have say. So we have to kind of group together as a community, educate, and even help educate the legislators, because a lot of these legislators don't really know, and they want to figure out how can they do it. And one of the things that they could do is market analytics. You know, they already have people's licensing information. They know where things are going. They can look at these things, create market analytics, and say, hey, we're going to be, you know, putting market analytics together for, you know, companies that need to figure out how to brand and market, you know, instead of saying, hey, why don't these guys are thinking in a different type of terms. They're thinking of, oh, we're going to make money off of really high licensing, and then we're going to separate all these little aspects like disposal and this, and then if we go in there and they're not doing something, we're going to make money off of fining them. And you know, that's how we're going to the city and stuff is going to make money. But the city can make money in other ways, not just off of tax revenue and, like, you know, control. They can, like, because most people in cannabis, when they're profitable, they want to help build their communities around them, you know.
Many people, I think the reason why also is that, like, it's kind of a sin tax, right? Like, I think there's a genuine perspective in a lot of places that, especially where I
The
am.
Bible Belt.
Yeah.
Well,
no,
no,
even in California.
but even San Diego, it's a big military town. You know, there's a lot of conservative elements too that kind of look at cannabis in a disparaging fashion, and so I think there's this, like, basically there's this sentiment of like, okay, well, you can have it, I guess, sort of, but you're gonna pay for it.
Well, here's my
and
thought.
luckily, recently that changed in San Diego. So I'm looking forward to all of my friends cultivating in San Diego County and Southern California generally.
But even with that said, I really liked the. I think it was. I can't even remember the name of the initiative now. God, that's terrible. Like SB 420 or something. No, that's probably not what it was. It was one of the ones Brandon talked about. There was two of, like, the same mission that were basically going under the same different names.
One
in
was
California.
like the Jack Herrera initiative, and then one was like almost identical, and it was two different people pushing almost the exact same legislation, but they were like divided on something that was
Might be the
basically
Sinclair, the Sinclair one, or that might just be Michigan specific.
It was like CH
no, this
2020.
was California.
Okay.
This was
Yeah,
California.
it was called like the Cannabis Hemp something Initiative 2020.
Initiative. Yeah.
And what it did was they said they want to make it so that you cannot tax cannabis higher than alcohol or tobacco. That was all that we're asking for. And it doesn't sound like a lot, but when you look at California's alcohol tax, I just Googled it, 6%. When you look at California, San Diego, their cannabis tax, if you went and bought $100 worth of cannabis, you walk out the door paying $134. It's 34% tax.
Yeah.
So you're talking about 28% more. And
Well,
when
Something has
talking
to keep
about-
the black markets going.
but here's the thing, they don't want to keep the black markets going. When you make something legal, like when they made alcohol legal after Prohibition, do you know what they did to the taxes? A little history lesson for anybody out there who doesn't know. They made the taxes extremely low. I believe it was 1% the first year because they wanted to run the bootleggers out. They wanted to give the legal people the best possible chance to be competitive with the black market. And then over the years, they slowly ramped it up. And now in California, if you look at, they theorize that there's $1 billion market that's going legally right now, but then there's a $4 billion black market. So if you could get even half of
that's exactly
the black market,
why, though, right, Jack? It's because they left the tax structure too high. They didn't
Yes.
learn. I mean, we learned so many lessons in the 1930s about alcohol prohibition, and we've been able to apply about 0 of them successfully to the cannabis market.
It's
right?
because people are so emotional about it. I think they don't think about it logically, or
they don't even think alcohol is a drug.
Right.
It's alcohol and other drug day at school. You know, it's
alcohol,
not drug day.
If alcohol was the new thing, although there's a lot of things about human development that wouldn't really make that likely, but if alcohol was the new thing, like, come on, it's literally poison. Now, I'm biased. I'm teetotal. I don't drink.
Yeah.
Well, and cannabis isn't even like the new thing either. It's been around for a long ass time. It just got demonized with like a racist early campaign in the United States.
I think it's older than alcohol, perhaps.
Well, yeah, as a plant, right? Alcohol is a substance.
Right. As a fun substance, maybe not.
You know, and a lot of the argument
the thing
that
about
I hear,
alcohol was it was historically more accessible. So we had a longer cultural history of tolerance with alcohol use.
It made water safe to drink. So that was a big,
that's right.
Yeah.
And fermented fruits were a little bit, a little
But you
zingy.
guys, back in the late 1800s, cannabis was the #1 prescribed medicine in the United States for like a dozen
Everything.
or more different common ailments. I mean, we were
More
also like
things-
buying cocaine in elixirs in the pharmacies and opium.
Yeah.
What was that thing,
Children were
laudanum?
dying as a result of accidental opium deaths. Was one of the sort of the leading causes of infant mortality in some places. So drug use of all sorts of kinds in the 19th century was like rampant. This is when they
Yeah.
discovered how to make cocaine, and suddenly you could get cocaine all over the world. And like Europeans went nuts mixing it with different wines and making different, like what would be today's versions of energy drinks. That's when Pemberton
Red Bulls and
did
vodkas.
Coca-Cola in the United States. So yeah, that
Coke is
was
it.
There was
Dr. MJ.
There was a huge heroin epidemic in the 1920s
Oh, yeah.
thanks to Bayer, who's
Yeah,
still
that's-
around and
that's
owns
true.
Monsanto now. So if you don't
Bayer invented heroin.
Bayer
did.
invented
It was an
heroin.
over-the-counter
That's
drug.
correct.
The
Yeah,
year
that's
before they
right.
marketed aspirin.
yeah,
That's correct. And
it is.
and
as
what
a
was that
champion, it was supposed to be a champion to morphine.
What was that
and they marketed it,
substance,
and that's how they marketed it.
What was that, Matthew?
I was gonna say, what was that substance? I'm gonna look it up right here. I think it's called laudanum.
Laudanum
Laudanum.
is the opium, yeah.
Laudanum
Yeah, I
is
think
the
it's
opium,
opium
right?
in like rum or something, isn't it?
It's
They would put it
a
in
tincture of
mixed
opium.
with alcohol, yeah, to preserve it.
Yeah.
Alcohol is a preservative in that case, but it also makes you
boy.
drunk and high at the same time. Then it's got that sort of dual purpose.
Yeah, I think that was a pretty common like.
Guys, when in the United States, when John Pemberton launched what he called French wine cola, the prohibitionists rejected, protested against it, and it was a mixture of wine and cocaine, and so he took out the wine. He kept the cocaine, called it Coca-Cola, and it was fine at that point. Like the prohibitionists at that point weren't worried about cocaine. We didn't understand the dangers of addiction with heroin. We didn't understand the dangers of addiction with cocaine. They were all sort of riled up about alcohol at that time.
I mean,
The
there had
difference
to have been
between-
people that knew about the dangers of opium use. It's been,
No, it really wasn't until the
recorded-
mid-19th
It had been
century.
recorded by the Chinese, where a lot of that stuff originated for centuries.
But it's not the same kind of documentation.
Hold on, I want to comment on that
Yeah.
specifically. The Europeans actually thought that they were immune, that they were racially superior to the Chinese who could get addicted to those things. And because of their superior genetics, this was a time of rampant white supremacy and Euro supremacy and those kinds of values. So
That's a good point.
they
actually.
were
They wouldn't
aware
even,
that
like,
Chinese
think of
had
that?
gotten addicted to opium, and they were not they didn't feel vulnerable to that.
They also thought that
Wow.
Asian people in general were like a sickly sort, and like I've watched many movies and from China when I was trying to do more sort of cultural enrichment, and it's people even various Asian cultures will talk to each other in this sort of way, and it's like a really really unfortunate and intensely bigoted time, and
exactly.
yeah, it's really bad. I'm
there's
glad
like
you
a
brought up
ladder.
that point.
It was after the US Civil War that they started realizing that there was a bunch of soldiers that were addicted to morphine after getting morphine administered in the battlefield. And then in Britain, in the mid 19th century, they started for the first time recording births and deaths in sort of a regimented way. And they realized how many babies were dying of accidental opium poisonings. And those events started sort of setting off a cascade of realization of some of the dangers of those drugs.
The opposite is true of cannabis, which has to be one of the safest drugs in history. And it's interesting that it's been demonized so much, even still till this modern day. In certain countries, you can get put to death for it or put in jail for a very long time, including the United States and certain states, unfortunately. I think we're definitely moving in the right direction, but it is kind of crazy that even like alcohol or opium, opiates in general are all so much more dangerous, yet cannabis is still regulated with way higher taxes. I mean, even when we're talking about like...
There was a report, I think, in like 1912. It was, oh man, what was it?
1912 was just before the Harrison Act, yeah.
It was a report, and it's what kind of changed all of the medical sciences in the United States, because there was a lot of holistic medicine. There was a lot of different schools of practice, and there was, financial powerhouses that specifically funded a certain type of medicine through grants, and they have laid out this report. And in this report, it documents in details, how they would kind of monopolize the medical industry in the country through grants and loans to the universities to study, certain aspects of medicine, but not others, like, eliminating nutrition from
Or
medicine.
apothecaries and stuff like that. They were all, there's just like the separation of like doctors on the rise, apothecaries went down. And then even like worse so in the 70s when we had doctors that we kind of accepted, they had a doctor that they did a report. It was in 1969 or 1970, and they found that cannabis was extremely safe and it shouldn't be illegal. But then Nixon was like, fuck that, Controlled Substances Act, 1970, and since then it's been Schedule 1 with all the other hard drugs. And kind of crazy that we live in a world where it's still in that place, but it's legal in so many states, both like for adult use and for medical purposes. So it's only a matter of time. I can't imagine in 5 or 10 years like it'll still be illegal federally, but
Yeah.
we'll
Can
see.
I toss just a couple of quick references for people that are interested in this stuff? Check out Julia Buxton, who's a scholar of prohibition. And of course, Mr. L. Alexander, if you want to understand sort of the history of 20th century war on drugs.
Flexner report.
Say that again, Brandon.
I couldn't remember. It's called the Flexner report.
Oh, okay.
I was gonna it took me a while, but I was searching through my notes. I wanted to share some numbers when we were just to reinforce what Brandon was saying about how having a cannabis business, for example, in your jurisdiction, if there's any, I wish, but if there's any people that are sitting on a board to a jurisdiction listening, here's some information you can even pull up. It was done, I think it was a year or two ago. There was a study here in Michigan by Michigan State University. The study was done by William Knudsen, PhD, and Stephen Miller, PhD. And I'm just going to take some bullet points because I don't want to read the whole giant thing. But they were looking specifically at the adult use. Some people call it recreational. That's another thing I'd like to highlight. Let's call it adult use and not recreational. I really
agree with that.
Adult use.
I can agree with that too. Just because of the fact that it's medical, regardless if you're using it in a recreational setting.
Yeah, recreational is almost like kind of
a recreational is a setting, not a diagnosis.
Impetus.
Like
it's
like
not a reason, right?
Yeah.
And adult use implies responsibility.
Yeah,
that's true.
Not for kids.
Yeah, but there's a big difference between recreational and medical. There just is. I mean, and I get it. I get from where people are going to say, if you're using it recreationally, you're using it medically. But someone who's had a lot of medical issues and been a medical patient for 10 years, I'm very, very for patient rights. So I'd push back on that a little bit.
He's not saying, he's just saying that he thinks that we should use the word adult use instead of
I
saying
get that.
rec.
No, I get that. And I'm just talking about
there should be a subdivision for medical quality.
Oh, I think that, medical programs should definitely be available in all states regardless.
That's all I'm saying, yes.
I definitely agree with you on that point, simply because there are people who are really ill or that are in really bad pain, people that have been addicted to opiates, that without the cannabis, they can't actually function. Is where someone like me, I can function without it. I don't have any ailments that would prevent me from functioning without the medicine, but I would be a really fucking agitated, really stressed out person who couldn't sleep very well, So in that aspect, I think that it is the responsibility of the legislatures to make sure medical programs stay intact, because if you can provide medical programs, then you can, especially if they're vertically integrated, you can get patients good quality medicine at an affordable cost. And especially for the people that really need affordable medicine and can't afford to get good medicine, is like, if I had a dispensary, which I plan on doing, I'm going to make sure that we have killer deals so people can go in there and get really, really affordable, high grade medicine.
So I really appreciate that, Brandon.
Spartan
Shout
Grown
out
and
to
Chan.
you.
Speaking of just like the numbers, though, so I think Spartan was going to help us out and plug some numbers, because I know one number that Brandon brought to mind for me there just a second ago was that when cannabis is made medically legal in a state, it lowers the overall healthcare costs. And I don't have it right on hand right now, but you can look into it, and several states have reported that. Colorado and California, both over certain years, saw their medical care costs go down, and cannabis taxes also coming in. So it's a double benefit. But I wanted to pass it to Spartan Grown because he has some information about Michigan on the specific numbers that I think are important, because although there might not be somebody listening who sits on one of those boards, people here in the chat can go to their city council. They can go
Yes,
to
they
their
can.
local meetings, and they can say, hey, look at this stat. Stephen Miller, PhD in Michigan, said when they went adult use, this happened. So Spartan, what's the goodies over there?
So
Let
this
this
was
be a reference.
so this is going off my memory of how they calculated these numbers, but what they were doing in this study is they wanted to project a market of what a mature market in Michigan would look like. And because last year, so 2020 would have been our first full year of adult use, right? So that's not a mature market. So they wanted to give the projection so that we would know what a mature market is. And they were using all the other mature markets, California, Colorado. And then they took our population numbers and our medical use numbers and all of that into account. And then like our population of everybody who's 21 and older, that kind of thing. So here's the numbers they came up with. For a mature market in Michigan, the estimated retail sales, and this is not counting anything on the medical side. This is only adult use. A mature market per year will be $3 billion in Michigan. The total economic impact to the state of Michigan will be $7.8 billion a year to the state of Michigan. The employment it would add direct employment, which means directly cannabis businesses, would be projected 13,500 jobs a year. So they're projecting 13,500 people working in cannabis jobs and in a mature market, which would be generating tax revenue, blah, blah, blah. And then the total employment impact. Now they're talking ancillary businesses that aren't operating now that would have to, pop up to meet the demand of the projected numbers for the cannabis jobs. So they're not cannabis jobs, but they're only going to be here because the cannabis jobs are here. So that adds an extra 23,700 jobs. These numbers get amazingly high when you think about it. I mean, when you look at just an addition of a job, what that brings to a municipality is just, amazing. And then here's the tax revenues that they said from what our taxes are as far as our sin tax, like what Matthew was talking about earlier. All those things figured in. The total tax revenue, they would say, is $495.7 million a year. 298.6 million of that would be the sin tax, all the extra regulation tax, and then the just the regular 6% sales tax that we have here in Michigan would be the 179.1 million per year that Michigan would bring in.
And they're leaving it all on the table. Maybe they're not such accomplished politicians like I thought.
Well, it's interesting because it makes sense, because you're basically bringing an entire economy in that was basically shut out for so long. It's like you've got, like Brandon talked about earlier, there's construction people, there's electricians, there's the people that serve the food to the people that work at the places that grow.
No, but
Look at Canada.
So what? And here's
they
the
are
thing.
allowing it though.
I'm involved in more than what you guys see on Instagram, and that's the thing, right? Because I'm in a state that just opened up to cannabis, a state where it's awesome here, right? Property is extremely cheap, but that's changing, right? There are tons of people all over California and all these highly populated areas that are itching to move into a new state, into the country, into a less populated area. And the places that they're moving are cannabis friendly places. I mean, because that's where the work is. That's where there's business. That's where all
real estate goes up
the
too.
Jobs, the real estate, housing rentals. When I got here, I was so lucky. I got my house for like $1,275 a month, dude. I have a 3-bedroom, 1,700 square foot house that I rent, huge backyard, and it's like, dude, I was paying a shitload. I was paying almost triple that in San Diego. So when you factor in, like, the next step is buying property, and not only that, but there's all these other opportunities in real estate and other places, where cannabis is. And that's the things that most people aren't seeing. If they just see cannabis, and that's what I see too as a consultant. I see some people that would be way better making, like, doing tables, building these tables that I see that you built out, as opposed to the things that are on them.
I gotta give
like,
sorry, I want to take a second because he's been here for quite a while, patiently waiting. And I also want to say shout out to Kyle of Predicative Breeding, pbreeding.com, for feminized seeds if you're interested. He had to leave a little bit earlier and didn't want to interrupt the conversation. But we got another guy from Mass with us, Hota Herb. Welcome. How you doing?
Going on, gentlemen? Good to see everybody. Figured I'd cruise through for a little bit, stop in and say hi. Interesting topic tonight. I spent a lot of time at Hota Herb on Instagram is the best way to find me. I actually spent a lot of time here in Massachusetts doing a bunch of business networking because there's tons of ancillary businesses. You need legal, you need accounting, you need real estate, you need insurance, you need packaging, you need labeling, you need delivery, there are tons of things that you need. And
get into merch.
Yeah,
Banking.
part of the
Banking's
problem.
the big one.
Banking's a big problem. Like even here in Massachusetts, where it was legal, there was only certain places where you could actually go and deposit money. There was only certain banks that would accept the money.
That's how it is here.
And part of that's because of because it's still federally illegal, and a lot of the banks are very cautious of losing their federal insurance. So they don't want to get involved in dealing with that. But we've been lucky here in Massachusetts. We've had a couple banks here that have agreed to, take on.
Didn't they pass the Federal Banking Act for cannabis, though?
No, they haven't. Not yet.
The Banking Act, I think, I thought that went through, because I know that there's banks that will accept, but they have to have a federal employee. The bank that we work with, they have a federal employee, and they come into the facility and they look around and stuff. And this is because, there's very few of them that have it. But my understanding is that the federal banking went through and they're accepting federal business taxes from cannabis businesses, but you have to go through certain banks, and they have to have a licensed federal agent at that bank.
Yep. And it's not like you can go to the night deposit box at your local bank that's closest to you, even if it's a branch for that same bank. Usually they only have a specific branch or specific couple locations where you can actually drop off funds. So it's very interesting. There's lots of different things that legal is probably the best place to start. You really want to get a good lawyer in your state who understands the marijuana laws that have been passed in the state. There's certain things even, in here in Massachusetts that are still funky, like seeds. Seeds are still in a funky place here in Massachusetts. You can have plants as a home grower. You can have a business to cultivate, a business to do extraction, a business to sell. There's distribution licenses and transportation licenses and all that. But there still is not a licensing for seeds and seed distribution as well. You can't actually sell seeds at the dispensaries in Massachusetts as of right now.
Let me ask you this. So the dispensary could sell you an ounce of weed, correct?
Yes.
So if that ounce of weed has 10 seeds in it, are you going to get in trouble for selling that ounce of weed?
No.
So what happens if you accidentally got half a gram, and that half a gram had a dozen seeds in it?
Yeah, it'd be like, this is seeded weed with a certain pollen, even though
sure, but he is not making that point.
You can't have packs of seeds behind the counter.
Right.
You can't sell the seeds for the breeders and for the companies you're selling. So it's just interesting. But yeah, there's lots and lots of ancillary businesses that are always part of the situation. Here, there's, like I said, we had a whole just a business networking group that met on a weekly basis to talk about all these issues. I mean, when they changed the CBD laws here in Massachusetts, as they shift different rules and put different rules in place over the last couple of years as legalizations happened, and as they evolve those laws as well, your business needs to keep up. Accounting's another one that's a really big deal. I think, unfortunately, a lot of people in this business are used to cash, and they're used to cash only, and they're used to purposefully not recording every sale that happens, which will bite you in the ass. Will bite you in the ass down the line, right? You have to record every sale. You have to record every dollar that you collect. You have to have the metric tracking on all the plants. I mean, there's a lot of these things that are requirements if you want to keep your business operating above the law and within the legal ranges. And it does take some time, but it spreads to everything. I mean, even chocolate making and packaging for chocolate bars. I mean, there's dozens of ancillary businesses, hundreds of ancillary businesses that are associated with this industry as it comes into being.
Yeah, I think Spartan, when he did the numbers, there was more ancillary jobs created than actual cannabis jobs created.
There were.
So, yeah,
23,000
like
versus
double.
16.
Yeah.
Double, right?
And most of the cannabis related jobs are actually pretty much minimum wage jobs. They don't pay well at a grow. They don't pay at a cultivation facility. Most people are getting paid pretty close to minimum wage. They don't pay trimmers well. They don't pay dispensary agents well, right? Those are all basically fast food jobs. So if you're gonna,
I can say that the people that work at, for me
Brandon
personally,
pays well. That's what he's gonna say. Brandon pays well.
we pay like what? I think minimum wage here is like $7.75. I usually pay like $20 an hour when I do most of the work with my partners, but when we do have people come in, we usually pay them pretty good. And then the people
$14 and $15 an hour average for cultivation, trimming, most of those jobs. Obviously, if you get some people who are talented, or you're going into a facility run by a relatively private company, it's not going to be the same thing. It's these larger facilities, that are the main ones that are going to be like that. Yeah.
Yeah, because even Majestic pays, even more than twice what minimum wage is. And then the trimmers, they all work on it's all commission work. So for $150 a pound, and we have trimmers that will knock out, 1,100 grams in a day. And so they'll walk away, after a week of trimming with a couple grand.
Yeah.
There's a few positions in a grow that actually are high paying, and I hate to say it because this is my least favorite term, master grower. It's what I'm going to be labeled as. I think cultivation director is a better term.
Cultivation director, yeah.
Like
that much better.
Cultivation. But that's the term. I hate to say it. Like when you talk to businessmen, this is a tip I have for anybody. Because when I got into like my health and wellness business, the first thing I was doing was yoga. And one of my in-laws, or my uncle-in-law, he was saying, "Are you a master yogi? Like, are you a master at it?" And I was just like, like, I'm good. I've been doing it for years. I've got this experience. But what he wanted to hear was I'm a master. Like, I didn't want to say it because I'm humble, and it's just like a goofy ass thing to say, especially with yoga, like master yoga.
I'll throw in and echo that sentiment. I've definitely, not to interrupt, but I've definitely had that experience where you have to simplify things and people don't want the nuance or the complex.
And in their head, that's what you are to them. So like this guy who wanted to hire me, if that's what he wants me to be, like I know what I'm actually doing and like what it could be called and like how some people in this community perceive that. But at the end of the day, it's like you're growing plants. Like don't fuck up a position because you want to like correct the guy on like what fucking name to call yourself. Like, I think just go with the flow and work with people. I think that's one of the most underestimated things in business or in life in general is like having that likability. You're going to want to work with somebody who you enjoy being around. So they're probably more likely to make a little bit more money and hang around the business for a longer period of time. It's some people overlook that, like, being short with people and not making the effort to be polite. Like even if you're not being rude necessarily, it makes the person who does that little thing, who like gives you that little gift, remembers your name, has an inside joke or a handshake or whatever the hell it is, they get further because those little things add up. And I don't mean it to sound like cronyism, but like that's just how life works. Like people hang out with and like support the people that support them and that they like. So try your best to be in a position where you can at least, sometimes you're not going to be the likable guy. Like you're the boss, you're gonna have to fire some people. You're gonna have to tell people, hey, you're trimming way too slow, and like we're not gonna be able to keep you on unless you can hit 500 or 700 grams a day because she's over there hitting 1200 1300 grams a day. Or it's like, or you're just not going to get as much commission, so like don't complain about getting paid less if you're going to trim slower. So there's some hard realities in this field. Like Hoda was talking about, a lot of the people, I hate to say it, they're like you know, there's tons of people that know how to take care of nursery crop for a bunch of different crops, and it's not that much different from cannabis once you get it down and you have people that know what they're doing. You can outsource that job to lesser skilled labor, and then it becomes a very low dollar per hour job comparatively to somebody who has the knowledge of maybe like breeding or tissue culture or some of these more advanced things in the cannabis space, even just like being very, very, very good at growing. Like some of the people like Noah the Grower, just his fucking posts that he puts up on Instagram, that's a portfolio. If I was looking for somebody who could grow fire that's frosty as fuck, that's going to sell like in California, and I was trying to import them from another state, Noah would be some person that I would think about, and many people on this panel, but I'm just giving him a shout out because he hasn't been talking too much over there. But those photos, they actually mean something, and it's like have it ready if you come into it. If somebody's like, hey, we're looking for somebody, you might, it sounds foolish, but your Instagram can actually get you a long way in this industry. I hate to say it, like that's one of the bigger forms of advertising and marketing in the cannabis industry right now.
It's funny that you say
For
that.
me.
I have like pictures from like my first grow, like all the way through, like thousands and thousands of pictures that I've saved that are time stamped just for that, just in case I ever thought I wanted to get involved in something. You know what I mean? And I'm having a great blast doing my medical thing, and I'm just loving life. But if I wanted to, I always told, my wife and other people, that would be one of my number one resume points. And then one of my other resume points would be, I have been unemployed. I've been employed, I've been dealing with cannabis my whole life. So I think that would almost be a selling point too. Some jobs, they want to have like a job history, but like, especially when you're coming into a legal market, like, the old school stoners and hippies and stuff, these guys have been involved in the black market for years and years and years. And, I'm just thankful that I have a medical card, but, I know a lot of guys who are some of the best growers I've ever met in my life, lived in the woods and, in the country, and just had a barn and just stuff like that. So there's a lot that goes to it. And I could definitely see it's really interesting to see some of the stuff that Brandon and Spartan were bringing up on the legal side, because I don't know any of that kind of paperwork stuff, but I've been growing for a long time, and I love to do it.
I would say if you want to get into the industry, I saw some people in the chat, and this might not necessarily be the case for a lot of us because we're growers and we might want to grow our own and have no interest in being in the legal part of the industry. As long as you can grow your own, whether it's like legal or not, that might be good enough for you. But metric is something I believe is in all states, or we'll get there at some point. In California, we have it. In Michigan, they
It's here
have
in
it.
Mass. It's
They
in
have it in
Mass.
Mass. So there, and I think there's something similar in Canada. So what I heard from one of the, even like, they're not a huge company, but they had 45 employees dedicated just to metric. So
Yep.
if you're somebody who can go through the sort of monotony of like tech of data entry and just accurately inputting data and knowing how to learn systems, like that's something that could be actually fairly decent paying job.
Really, really valuable to a cannabis company. If you
Absolutely.
came to, if we were hiring and we're like needed someone to do some management, that would be something that would be absolutely huge. Being able to do the seed to sale track and trace program software, if you already know how to do that, that's value that you can bring into a company. And that's goes for a lot of different skill sets, so if you're trying to get into my advice, if you're having an interview or if you're going to a company, ask them questions. Ask them about what types of lights they're using. Ask them about what type of ACs they're using. Use your knowledge to get a feel for what they're doing, and it will make them feel much more confident that you're the person that they need. Because especially if they're like, hey, you know what, you should talk to our cultivation director because I'm just the manager, that it gives you a step ahead, so you can it gets you, I don't know, it just pushes you further along, I think.
I
There's
definitely want
still
to
a
echo the
gap.
sentiment that it's also it is definitely important to follow the rules. It's important to follow the rules with regards to safety. It's important to
Yep.
follow the rules with regards to like getting a qualified applicator's license or any of those sorts of things. And it's going to be different for different states. But I definitely agree with the advice that's been already promulgated. It's important to have a unique skill set, but also it's important to know which skill sets are important for the place that you want to be in.
If you're like skilled as like a lab technician, that's one thing that the industry I see could use more of, really skilled technicians that know how to run HPLC machines and people that can detect cannabinoids and do proper consistent testing.
Agree with that. IPM specialists, knowing your pests and knowing what are the new pests out there. And, a lot of that content's on my YouTube channel, Zenthonol. Just going to put that out there. If you want to leverage some good information.
I want to ask you about that, because if you're recommending people get into it, a lot of people might think, well, isn't that going to make a competition for him? And I think you're sort of on the opposite end, where there's so many farms and places that need an IPM specialist. But I'm curious, what are your thoughts?
Yeah. Good luck taking all of that business.
Yeah, it doesn't.
But people
work
have
like
that scarcity mindset, man. They really do. And I think I've seen it on the online space, unfortunately, with that. Even in the IPM community, I'm not going to call out any names in particular, but yeah, it's unfortunate that people have that sort of mentality that they want to, or even just they want to get as much of the, territory as possible while it's still during the rush, and make their name as big as possible and be the one, and try and like put down others to make themselves seem even higher up on that pedestal. Sometimes it's a sad reality.
It's corrosive, and it's also not unique to the cannabis industry. But one of the unique things about agriculture and horticulture that I've experienced is that seemingly a lot of professionals tend to have tons of camaraderie, like we have here on the panel, and nobody's like, there's not like an apple grower, another apple grower typically being like, oh, well, I got to make all of my apple market share, and you're going to be a threat to that. Usually it's the exact opposite, like you're describing. People are nicer to each other. People help each other out. People support each other.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
that
definitely.
sort of collaborative labor goes way back in pretty much every agricultural tradition. That's one of the things that I love about it.
Yeah, right. And so
it's one of the things that, it's one of the reasons that we started Go for Cannabis, because like I want that community, and being a home grower felt so disconnected. That's why I do this. That's why the online cannabis community is so important to us as farmers, because every farmer has a community that will support them.
So it makes sense that us on the panel work well together, I think, because we all, and a lot of people besides us, have this sort of collective sentiment, I think. And it definitely gives me a good feeling for the future of growth and development.
Absolutely. That spirit of collaboration that I always talk about comes from the farmers that I worked with in southern Mexico. And how they work together. And I wrote a big portion of my dissertation on their patterns of collaboration and cooperation. And those are lessons that I've learned sort of from farmers, and try to take them into sort of our own cultural practices.
That's why I love being here with all you guys. There's a lot of people here that know a lot about cannabis, and it's so awesome, because I feel like a nerd sometimes talking to other people about it, and because I've been doing this for a long time, and pretty much my whole life, and everyone here, there's people here that know a lot more than me, and it's just awesome to just be around that. It kind of forces me to step up my game, and I've become a better grower for sure in the last year or two. So.
I want to give Hoda Herb a chance. It looked like you were trying to jump in there for a little bit earlier, and didn't necessarily have a chance. If you still have the thought and you want to,
I think I cut you off. I apologize.
Yeah, no, that's fine. That's fine. It's just, I think my experience is that there's still some gaps, right? Because it is a nascent industry. So there's a lot of very small businesses, right? And so there's a lot of very small jobs. There aren't very large corporate networks or next levels up of those types of ancillary businesses, because these are industries that are just evolving, right? There's no large advertising companies that work strictly with cannabis that are, doing national, broadcasts and in the Super Bowl ads and things like that. So for me, I've spent most of my career in corporate IT. I've worked for Fortune 500 companies. I worked for Staples. I worked for Liberty Mutual. I worked for Monster.com. I worked for Microsoft. The types of jobs that I do don't exist in the industry yet, because that level doesn't exist, because this is still a very nascent industry. When you have a person who owns a grow and maybe owns a grow in a store, and maybe they have a couple of cannabis businesses, they still are at a point where they and their family, and they may bring in a CPA to help them out occasionally, but for the most part, it's still at a manageable level. They haven't hit the point where they need somebody like me who builds data warehouses and business intelligence and does data analysis and market
analytics is
structure.
huge. That's what I was saying earlier, dude. Market analytics could be a huge business that people don't even really look at, because
BDS analytics is huge. They're talking about
there's no money in it yet, because the industry hasn't evolved to a point to be able to pay the services and the fees for people like myself to work in the industry. Right. That was the problem I found out when I was trying to get a job. When I tried to, I was out of work for about 16 months. I was like, I'm going to stay out of IT. I'm just going to find something in this burgeoning cannabis industry in Massachusetts. And I spent months and months networking, and I went to all the events and all this other thing. But there just wasn't, if I wanted to be a partner in a business, which is no money and no health insurance, if I wanted to go work as a trimmer or go work at a grow or work at a dispensary, I could do that. But I wasn't, there was no higher level management structures, the types of things that I do. Those jobs don't really exist yet. So for me, I ended up going back into IT, because that's where I work. That's the type of jobs I would do. In 3 to 5 years, absolutely, there's a space for business analytics. Another thing with data
Especially
and analytics
with
is
federal legislation too.
Yes, absolutely. But data and analytics is something that most businesses rely on when they plateau. When you're making money and you're just going up like this, and you're just making more cash and you're making more sales and everything's going good, you don't need data and analytics. You just need to be able to keep up with the volume. That's all you care about. When you plateau, or when you start going down, that's when people actually start to look at business analytics. And when you're in an industry that's just starting out, guess what? There's only up right now. There is no competition. There's only
it's the exact same with biosecurity. I just wanted to say you're totally right.
Yep.
But I'll say this, in California, it's extremely competitive, because there's only a certain number of licenses, and a lot of people are spending tons and tons of money to fight for them, to be in a very exclusive market. Even though it is overtaxed, there is a portion of people that go there to buy those products and to build a brand early. A lot of them are losing money. It's like the whole Amazon thing. They're just going to hemorrhage money for years and years to get their brand out there.
That's a mature market, though. That's a mature market, right? The
It's way
California
different
market's been
than
there
mass.
for a long time.
Because we use BDS analytics out here, and that makes huge waves in with the sales. They'll say Colorado, the number one thing that's selling is Blue Dream and Girl Scout cookies or whatever. So people are going to grow more of that. They're going to stock more of it at dispensaries. And even as recently as a year or 2 years ago, Blue Dream was one of the top sellers in California in the legal market. So everyone loves to shit on Blue Dream, but it sells in the legal markets, and it also sells in the illicit market, unregulated, whatever you want to call it. Don't call it the black market, though. I personally
gray market,
green market, gray market, traditional market,
the alternate markets, the unregulated markets,
old school market.
Just because, think about the cannabis history, it was made illegal heavily based on racism. I hate to say it.
Traditional.
Like,
I love it.
marijuana. It was
I love to say it. It's an incredible talking
Hispanic.
point.
And
Free
the amount of
markets. It's the only free
Yeah,
market.
African American people and
Comfortable
Black people that
saying
are
it, too.
still in jail because of it, disproportionately to white people that use the same rate. It's disgusting. And like the term black market does have racist connotation, just like the term marijuana does. And I think that we're all moving away from it. I'm not gonna like get mad at somebody if they say either one of them, but I think that we can all like lead, just like the whole adult use thing earlier we were talking about. I think it's just a better term, and there's just a better way, like moving forward. We all just say cannabis. We all just say
I agree.
adult use.
There's a sentiment also, and I'm sure Hota Herb would agree with this, and I'm sure you've experienced it, and you too, MJ Coco, and a lot of people here actually on the panel. I'm sure there's people who have a business acumen or skill sets, but people will naysay or they'll like disparage people who get in the cannabis industry who aren't like direct growers because it's like some sort of intrusion or like that's not the real work or some such nonsense like that.
I'm a Chad by association.
Exactly.
If you're an investor, like everyone hates investors, but it's like shit. If they're going to give you money,
investors.
We like
Not
old
everybody.
growth
You need
forests.
an accountant. You need an accountant. You need an attorney. You need a real
Yeah.
estate person. You need insurance.
you need attorneys
A mechanic.
in this industry, plural.
You need a financial planner because you need a business planner that helps you have a exit plan and a plan to go forward and to help you understand when it's time to expand. I mean, you could go into business, you and your buddy decide to start a business. Something happens to your buddy. Do you want to be in business with his wife? Don't know. You better have that in your contract when you start out, because otherwise you could get screwed down the line. There's certain things like that that are super, super important as part of this industry and will become extremely important over time as the industry grows. These other jobs will come into fruition. These other things will come, but it's going to take years. It's going to take time for them to get there. And definitely the federal removing of some of the federal blocks will be a huge help to that and make it so that you can advertise and you can bank. Those two things alone would help spurn the industry for some of these other ancillary businesses.
Yeah, I think we're ready for it. I think that's going to happen though too, Hoda. I think we're going to really, I mean, if you think back to just where the market was and where the sort of legal philosophy was and the political stances like 10 years ago or 15 years ago, I mean, and we're moving at such sort of a breakneck speed and like picking up speed along the way in a lot of these changes. You know, I think that we may all be, I'm prepared to be patient for it too, but I sort of think like this is going to happen faster than we think. This market's going to really mature.
I want to say that there are currently ads being run in California. There are billboards, which is advertisement. I drive down my street on Coast Highway 101, which is a very historic street in San Diego that drives all the way up California. There are multiple cannabis billboards that to tell you about dispensaries or delivery services. Also, banking is currently happening. My wife works at a medical delivery service. She's in one of those, like, she's not a grower, and I don't look down on it. I don't think people should. They need those people on those things. She's like she works in the office at a medical delivery service. They have drivers there. They aren't working with plants. They have managers and people above them. So it's the cool thing about that, the reason I brought it up, she gets a direct deposit in my bank. They have to go through a bank where they pay a higher percentage than a typical bank, but it at least is a step in the right direction. Like she gets an actual direct deposit twice a month. So it feels like a very real, legitimate job. Like they have benefits. So it's moving in the right direction. And one thing
Payroll's another one. Payroll's another one, right?
Yeah,
how do you pay your employees? You have to have a payroll service that's willing to actually pay your employees. But yeah, I mean, when I was talking about advertising, I was talking about like an ad on NBC in prime time, being able to actually put out pay for advertising on Facebook without getting your site shut down.
It's coming. There was about to be a CBD in the Super Bowl.
When that happens, that's when these other businesses, those floodgates will open. But it's going to take some time. We do, I definitely also have hope as well that now that, Schumer is there and, he has the chance to push some of this legislation through. It wasn't going to happen while Mitch McConnell was in charge. And so hopefully now they'll be able to push some of that legislation through. I mean, realistically, they should just deschedule it, move it down in the schedule, and then that would solve a lot of the problems anyway. I mean, it's asinine.
I think the Pfizer lobbyists are still out producing funds for the politicians, Hoda. Doesn't matter blue or red. It's the money that counts, really.
They just got a big
The
boom of
politics
money.
aren't there anymore, though.
say-
I mean, it doesn't even if you're getting increasingly like a super majority on the legalization side of this argument politically in terms of voters, you can't sort of fight against that with
And
money
there's-
forever.
There's proven money coming into the government right now in all these states that are cashing in.
Well,
Exactly.
it's a
We were
majority.
talking
We
about
have
that
40
earlier on,
legal.
right?
Yeah.
Is it-
I
40
really
all
don't
that
think
money.
there's an economic argument against it. I think the
Yeah,
argument against
once-
it is more
once
more
every
sort of
state-
cultural.
Once every state legalizes cannabis in medical form, how can they pronounce that it has no medical value anymore, the federal government? I mean,
It's really easy.
now.
They just don't
Simplicity?
change
They
it.
just
yeah. They just don't
do
change it and decide.
Yeah. I mean, there's no sort of internal consistency requirement, I think. So
Just for an
duplicitous
example,
laws are pretty common. Yeah.
I can give an example for that very situation. In the state of Michigan, there's been court cases here decided, and pretty much the official stance here is because we have a medical system and we have an adult use side. Okay. And if somebody is, for example, pulled over and that has cannabis in their system, if they have a medical card, they're considered a medical user, and cannabis is considered medical. But if you don't have that magical card in your pocket, it's no longer medicinal anymore. So it's medicinal only when it's not. That's their stance.
That's
How would
fascinating.
having the medical card affect your level of impairment vis-a-vis driving a motor vehicle?
Apparently, if the state gets money from you, your impairment's less.
Right.
Seemingly so. At least it's less justified or something like this. That's sort of unfortunate.
It's harder for them to prosecute you in court if you have a medical case and they know that they're not going to win in a trial, I think, against a medical patient.
That's
Typically,
the real reason, right? Yeah.
that's my honest opinion, because there has been several cases that go to court, they fight it in trial, and even though they get deemed guilty, the people are like, yeah, even though we know that they're guilty of the crime, we don't think that they should go to jail for this, so we're just gonna, not prosecute them. And it's I forget the term, but it's a legal way that people, if they feel that there's a morally unjust law, they don't have to go through with sentencing.
Jury
Help us
Nullification.
out with that's-
jury
yeah.
nullification.
And I want to say only 5 states are red. I just Googled it in the US. There are only 5 states that don't have some sort of legalization of cannabis.
Drinking.
And
Drinking.
the one thing I want to say is, if it does go legal, and even if it's not legal in your state yet, one thing I want to say, Hoda was mentioned earlier, and it doesn't tend to feel like this, that everything's always just going up and up, that not everyone will succeed. There are going to be the ones that don't make it. So you have to be the guy who's hustling their ass off, like a Brandon Rust and Spartan Grown over there, and they're putting in the hour, and like how all of us do in our home grows, but at a harder,
is never
larger scale.
guaranteed.
Yeah, when
Success
you're
is never
surfing, you got to
guaranteed.
paddle your ass off to catch the biggest waves.
Absolutely. And it's there's a lot of people that are not going to make it, and you have to do every single thing right. And even then, there are going to be people that do every single thing right and lose, because there's going to
True.
be billionaires that are bleeding money for years and years and years to get on that market, to get on that shelf, and they're going to pay to have a fancier box and have more shelf space and more dispensaries. But there are going to be the ones, the cream will rise to the top, those small brands like a 710 Labs or a Wonder Bread out here in California that are killing it, despite being up against literally big tobacco money. I mean, there
Takes
is
time.
Philip Morris is
takes time.
in the cannabis industry, both in Canada and California, and it's only going to continue to expand. And it's going to be a very interesting state of affairs. I know we've only got about 15 minutes left. Spartan Grown, you usually jump out at about this time. I want to give you a chance to get your final words, thoughts in, and then you can give your shout outs before you got to run.
I just want to shout out everybody on the panel. This was a great episode. Sorry to Chad, we didn't really answer a whole lot of questions, but it just was a great conversation that flowed well. So I like that stuff, and I learned something. Hopefully everybody learned a little bit of something, and those are always the best shows, because that's why we're here. We're educating each other, learning in public. I love it. Shout out to chat, and thanks everybody who's been showing me all the love on Instagram. My God, I can barely open my Instagram without spending 2 hours on that thing. If I don't hit you back with a like or something, I'm sorry, but I'm flooded with all this interest with the giveaway. So, but it's about to be over. I think I was only like 50 away. Then I can give this light away with all these seeds and everything else, and be back to normal. So I can't wait for that. So growers love everybody. And I'll be on the Mystery Bros Grow Show here in about 15 minutes.
Yeah.
Take it easy,
Later,
man.
dude.
What's up, Spartan?
I'm going to follow him on out the door too. So this is at Hota Herb on Instagram is the best way to find me. But reach out to me on Instagram if you're interested in learning more about business canon networking. So I can get you in touch with the Canon Networking group. They're actually on LinkedIn. They do weekly LinkedIn Zoom meetings. So definitely hit me up if you're interested in learning more about doing some actual business networking. Give me a DM, hit me up on Instagram, all right? At Hotaherb, JOTAHERB. Guys, it was awesome to see you all. Thank you so much for having me as always. Really good conversation tonight, and hope you all have an awesome week. I'll talk to you soon.
Thank you for coming, Hota. I got to admit, I was a little bit excited when I saw that name pop up in the Zoom, and I had to approve it.
I'd
And then I
love
got
to
in
see
here.
you, Hoda.
I'd love to surprise you. I'll talk to you all soon. Bye.
Have a great
See you
one
later,
there.
dude.
Peace out. But yeah, thank you again to Hota Herb, JOTAHERB on Instagram. He's a great dude. I'm glad that he decided to jump in and give a little bit of his, opinion and thoughts about how things are going over there in Mass, and from a professional, how things maybe aren't where they are in other businesses quite yet. And I'm glad that he was able to share his opinion and come on and really offered up a valuable insight for the rest of us to kind of talk back and forth with. So I'm glad he joined us this evening. Does anybody have any final thoughts before we've got about 14 minutes left before the final shoutouts?
We need 16 more likes to hit 100 likes on our 100th episode. I hope we're worth it.
There's 150 here right now, so we can definitely make that happen, I'm sure. So for the YouTube algorithm, turn that white thumbs up to a blue thumbs up. It pushes us up so other people can find us. I didn't think that they actually recommend a lot of these shows to people, but somebody just said, and one of my buddy Eagle Gardens, fucking talking shit with Eagle, that they actually got recommended his show, and that's how they found it. So even though his show has like a swear in the title, and it's definitely recommended for the 18 plus, and there's like a lot of smoking just like this, and it's cannabis related, which could easily be turned down by the YouTube algorithm because we don't choose to monetize. They don't push us up as much as a lot of the monetized content because they can make money off of it. So we're happy that we even have the people here.
Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
A lot of people believe that. I'm not entirely sure that it's true about monetizing content and performing better in the Google algorithms, but yeah.
I would suggest just to look into some of the higher up YouTubers who have actually done side-by-side data on their videos, and with monetizing and not monetizing it, not even close at least on the higher end, like literally like 700% in the same channel. And it's interesting sometimes to Graham Stephan is one. He shares a lot of the insight, and he's got several million. He's like a personal wealth and development. He does real estate and other stuff like that, but he shared some of that stuff. And not to say they couldn't change it tonight. YouTube's always changing. Google changes their algorithm all the time, and it's incredibly complex, but a lot of people have demonstrated with different channels and different videos that you can see the videos perform higher if they're monetized. And like I said, we get like 146, and there's tons and tons of people on YouTube. I think that if it was naturally being pushed as much as the other stuff, I think we would grow a little bit more than just like I think it's mostly people sharing it with their friends, or
No, I mean, it depends on how your channel lands. So some channels have really, it depends on where your traffic comes from, but you can see all of this. So if you can get into the Cheap Home Grows YouTube dashboard, then you can see where the traffic is actually coming from and how much YouTube is recommending the content. All that data is available for the channel.
It's very little, I'll say that. And
right, and almost all of my
title.
views come from YouTube recommendations or from suggested videos and stuff like that. So it's not
different
from
content,
and none of my videos are monetized.
Yeah, no, I'm not saying the monetization is the
and they're
issue.
all related
It's
to
our
cannabis.
yeah, I guess but like the lighting reviews are a little bit less risque, I'll say, than like teaching people how to cultivate cannabis the
Right,
cheapest
but the
possible
Google
ways.
algorithm doesn't really know that, to get back to that point. So I think the Google algorithm will pick us up. It depends on more the audience metrics about sort of, and I think hitting the like, and I think getting a big audience during the thing and all of that. We don't have to get too deep into this particular rabbit hole, but I think we can do it is sort of the message that I want to say. I don't think the fact that we're not monetized or the fact that we are on cannabis will prevent the shows from being able to be picked up by those algorithms.
I agree, and that's why I always encourage the thumbs up. And I saw the people in the chat like literally spamming it earlier. So cheers to all of you, because you know the support, it does help. And even making the comments, like all the people that are commenting right now, each year they show you like how many minutes you have watched and how many people commented. Like in these are considered as comments. I would be concerned for
we did get
concerned
over 100.
American. Don't do too many thumbs up like that, because actually sometimes YouTube will like block people if they start spamming too many emojis. So don't go too ham on the emojis, but cheers to the.
But thanks guys for getting us over 100.
Tell all your friends and everyone in Sunday school to watch Cheap Home Grow on Sundays.
So we've totally turned this into a full sellout. No, I'm just kidding. It's an interesting conversation about the analytics end of it, but I don't want to make it too much about the that sort of side of things. We do have about
baseball.
10 minutes left. So I think this is about a good time for us to go around and give our final shout outs and plug anything if you have anything new or exciting coming up. And so I'll pass it over first to Dr. MJ.
Yeah, no, I had a lot of fun on the show. It was nice to have Hoda drop in, get into some different kinds of conversations about different elements in the cannabis market that we don't often talk about, but it was an interesting conversation. So thanks to the rest of the panelists for chiming in. Thank you to the chat as always. It was our 100th episode, guys, and we had, I think, our biggest crowd in here. We got the most likes. So I think we're gonna keep doing it as long as people keep enjoying the show. And I'm happy to be a part of it. So thank you, Jack, for hosting, everybody else for showing up. I'm Dr. MJ Coco from cocoforcannabis.com.
Thanks, Doc, for coming. I wanted to say earlier, something clicked with me tonight, and it was what you studied, I think, with your PhD, and like you're being such a big part of the farming community, that spirit of collaboration. Ever since I first met you, that was always like almost like one of your taglines, like we're here for the spirit of collaboration, like let's grow together, let's do the grow alongs. And like your challenges were never like best or whatever. It was like, you know, it was more of a community building thing. We're growing together, not against each other. And I really love that you're pro sharing genetics, you're pro just being like open and making people network more, because for a long time, I've been on the opposite side of it, and not to like make myself fucking push myself up on some pedestal, but like before cannabis was legal, things were very hush hush, and the communities were not this way. The sharing of genetics wasn't happening. They were hoarding cuts. If they got sold, they were sold at extremely high prices, and sometimes they would do that and let out a shitty cut just to like fuck people over. And there was a lot of really shady sides of the industry, and Brandon has experienced some of it as well, and I'm sure a lot of us have gone through that. And to see moving the right direction so much so often, and like to see a community like on your website, cocoforcannabis.com, with literally I've only seen, I haven't actually, you probably had to monitor some of it and get some people off there, but I've only seen 100% positivity. Like literally everybody over there is cool. I haven't met a single person there that's not cool. So something
I'm
about
really happy to
growing
hear that,
cannabis.
Jack. Yeah, no, that's about, I mean, that's it. Just reinforcing the community values, reinforcing that sort of, you know, the grower love, the spirit of collaboration, the let's grow together. And that's absolutely, I try to build that into everything in the community.
It makes it just also so much more enjoyable to be around, because I'm sure all of us have been in a place some point in life where we've been like that misfit or outcast or whatever, probably because our cannabis use at some point, and we felt like you know, pushed away from the norm or whatever, and like to be accepted and welcomed is a uncommon feeling for a lot of us in some respects. So I think it's really warm and welcoming to have such an awesome community here and on Coco for Cannabis and other places as well. I want to give Brandon Rust a chance to give his shout outs, because I'm going to be putting an order in soon for some more Microbe Plus. That's the first thing I'm going to run out of, because I love it and use it so often. But how are you doing over there? And give your final thoughts and shout outs.
I actually just filled up like 100 bottles, and I'm waiting for the rest of the bottles to come in the mail so I can finish the rest of them. So perfect timing on your part. The stuff is already super biologically active. I actually talked to I think it was the CSO or CEO, someone over at Fishhead Farms, because I was getting a referral for the carb cap, so that way I can have these things off gas without spilling any liquid. So that'll be coming in the future. Bokashi's doing pretty well. I'm thinking about getting a little shop or something so I don't have to keep using my house to package product and have
Tax
50
write-off.
gallon drums of microbes brewing. I just have so much going on out here. I wake up every day. I do consulting. I do growing. I'm in the garden a lot of the time, just everything. So I'm always happy to be here. You can follow me on IG at Rust Brandon, and you can see just what I'm up to.
Cheers to that, man. It's I think everybody should diversify. Don't get too. I never believe in putting all your eggs in one basket. Even if you're the best grower in the whole world, that black label organics, you could probably expand it out and just do greenhouse growing and fucking kill it. But doing the consulting, doing the education work, coming on these podcasts, going on Future Cannabis Project and all that other stuff, doing the Bokashi business side of things, with Micro Plus, Amino N Plus, all that stuff, it all adds up and it keeps everything fresh for you. I'm sure, like with myself, it's fun to, like, you have your passion and sometimes it dies down a little bit in this and you put a little bit more into that. And it's just really awesome to see you keeping everything at such a high level. I'm going to give you a nickname, kind of like Shane gave me a long time. He called me the human Wikipedia of cannabis. You're like the Elon Musk of cannabis over here, fucking in every single business, pushing it to that fucking super, super high level and trying to be the absolute best you can be and just crushing it. And so I'm happy for you.
I'm just lucky to be in a good state that has good regulations and I can do what I love, so.
Cheers to that, man. And I'm really happy for you. You've come a long way since I first met you a few years ago. And I'm really just happy to see you continue to grow and make these improvements in your life and just building up and making the world a better place. Noah the Grower's got his hand up, so I'm going to give him a chance to jump in to give his final thoughts and shout out.
Yeah, I just want to say I had a great time with everybody. And yeah, man, everybody here is, on another level. I feel like Brandon's on a different level too, but yeah, I mean, probably a little higher, but than me, myself personally, I can't speak to everyone else, but yeah, no, I look up to all you guys, man. Dr. Coco, Aaron the Grower, you, Jack, everybody, Spartan, all of you guys. It's awesome to be here with everybody. And if you're not already following any of these guys, you definitely should be. I follow all of them. I'm Noah the Grower from Instagram. And if you got any questions, I don't do no charging or nothing. I answer any question, try and go over any problem someone's got in their grow. I try and help everybody out as much as I can. And I'm always on there. So you can always, shoot me a direct message and I'll help out as much as I can with anybody. And a shout out to the traditional old school growers, man. Those are the real OGs, that have been keeping this alive for 30 years, plus. And, I respect all those guys and I respect all these legal guys that are doing it now too. It's awesome to be a part of it. So.
Big ups, Noah. Mad love and respect to everybody, whether they've been doing it for 30 plus or they just got into the legal side of things. We welcome and love all people that love this plant and want to grow it and be part of the community. It's awesome to see it continuing to grow and more people breaking down that fucking reefer madness stigma bullshit that we were all fed for a long ass time, that cannabis is evil and bad. And I think that it's so nice and refreshing to see the world moving to a place where it's accepted and not looked upon like that, but looked upon as a potential medicine, an essential. Yeah. And during a pandemic, it's deemed essential. It's become really giant business, even though a lot of people don't want to look at that side of things. It's a giant opportunity for some people, like first time multi-generational wealth for certain families, and it's going to provide just tons and tons of opportunities. It's just the beginning. We're seeing literally history happen, and seeing the prohibition slowly unfold. Dude Grows always says watching prohibition fall down, and I just love that sentiment. But with that said, I want to give Matthew Gates his chance to give his final thoughts and shout outs.
For an 100th episode, I thought we did really good. Not only with the chat integration really great, but we had a cavalcade of cool conversational topics. And I felt like I got to make some good input, and I really liked Spartan's input about the numbers and the metrics, and I think that would be very useful for people who want to make such a reference in the future politically. So please use this episode as a reference. If you'd like to find out more about my integrated pest management professional work, as well as IPM help in general, I post information in 3 main places. My YouTube channel is Zenthanol, my Instagram, SyncAngel, and on Twitter at SyncAngel. Right now, I have a video that will come out in about 3 or 4 minutes about Western flower thrips on cannabis, and so I invite people to check it out, where I've piled a ton of information, physiological, detection, identification, and treatment. Oh, treatment will be a different video, but all of that information right now, and it'll come out, so check out my YouTube channel for more.
Awesome stuff. I love that YouTube channel. I've watched many of the videos and really enjoy them. So thank you for putting out continually extremely high quality content for the community. It has helped my garden several times. I just recently watched one of your videos that was about the they're not pests, but just things that might be identified in soil that a lot of people like freak out about that are perfectly fine. So I can't remember what the actual title of the video is. Maybe you could tell me.
Hey, I just wanted to say shout out to SyncAngel. He's one of the best in the business too. I spaced him off early. And Kyle, one of the coolest guys I've met. Everyone here, man. Everyone here.
No worries, man. Yeah, definitely a big shout out to everybody here. I just turned off my virtual background because I'm going to give a big shout out to anybody who didn't see it earlier. I got the book, 50 Strands Green. It should be shipping on Monday, Tuesday perhaps for the international people if the paperwork's a little bit more complicated. But Brandon is going to be featured in there. His photos for the Gorilla Glue 4 and the Limarilla strain. So thank you again to Brandon for that. I'm really excited for everybody to get their copies. It is sold out. So thank you everyone for buying up all those copies. The ebook is coming soon. And I'm going to put up my virtual background again so you can see where to find me at. This is at Jack Greenstock. I'm sure most of you already know that. I am your host weekly on the Growing with My Fellow Growers. Oh, there it goes. But yeah, you can also find me on Cannabuzz at Jack Greenstock and Twitter at Jack_Greenstock. Thank you all so much for coming another week. 100 episodes has been really fun for me. I've been here since episode 1 and really enjoyed a lot of the talks and content that we've been able to put out there, including tonight. I really, really enjoyed the conversation this evening. I will probably try and go back and timestamp when Spartan, I spotlighted him and he gave that really good information, because I think I don't like to get political a bunch, but if I always make the joke, if I was for one party, it'd be the fucking Green Party, because I'm all things cannabis. Like I'm pro cannabis reform. Like that's the only politics I really give a shit about, is like making cannabis so people don't go to jail for it. I think we should decriminalize. That should be our number one goal. People shouldn't be in prison for cannabis. Regardless. And I just wanted to throw that out there. I think with good information though, like on top of just like feeling woo-woo about it and loving it like all of us do, it's nice to have the numbers to support that it's going to build businesses and build economies and make communities better. I've seen it personally in Humboldt. It made the schools and fire stations and police stations, all that stuff. Like a lot of those guys actually donate to the police and treat them with tons of respect and love and build up their communities as much as they can. So I think moving forward, we're going to be a huge positive impact on this world. So peace and love to all the cannabis warriors out there. And here's to another 100 episodes.
Hey,
and
do I get to say goodbye?
The American one is going to close us out, because save the best for last, obviously.
No worries. I just want to shout out Noah the Grower. He shout out everyone, you know, the proof is in the pudding, man. When you see healthy plants, that's who I pay attention to. And I'll stick by that. I don't care what their methods are or what their policies are. If they're growing healthy, insanely good-looking, healthy plants, that's what, you know, go to them and get their advice. So that's all. And shout out to Jack, a good 100th episode. I loved all the conversations and everyone in chat. Peace. And yeah, peace out.
Peace and love, everybody. Thank you all for coming again. And I look forward to seeing you next Sunday. Same time, same place. And thank you again. It's been a great one. Jack Greenstock signing out. Peace and love.
Happy growing.